So.
Okay, so I'll get my Facebook ready and I'll share it out.
Cool. Alrighty, we are live. Welcome to another episode of the Sovereign Human Show. It is very good to have you here. I am also going to just check: is it going live? Is it going out?
We are live and alive. Let us know if you are alive.
There we
are you a robot?
I am seeing it.
Are you a human? Are you real? What even is real?
Up in the comments, let us know if you are watching. So yeah, it is now live. It's on my profile, so you could, but it's not shareable from there. That is interesting. Let me share it.
I did a conference in 2018 called "Are We Really Real? Do We Even Exist?" I'm kind of joking around it, but I'm also interested to see what you believe. Do you believe this is base reality, everyone? We're calling this decoding the simulation. Do you believe this is real life? Are we in the Matrix? Are you out of the Matrix? Let us know your thoughts on all things simulation. I think that's one of the things we're going to talk about today, right?
Absolutely. I've just messaged you on Facebook Messenger the link for the actual event where people can then dive in as well. So perfect. Wonderful. All righty, let me come back in here. So we have, into just under an hour. I want to definitely pack in a lot. I'm going to use Luke like a dog because of his wisdom, because of his beauty, because of his heart, because of his love. And so there's a few things. First off, dude, I salute you for being absolutely relentless, right? It's like Facebook. The algorithm just gives me Luke Scott every day, like in abundance. Okay. And so I really salute you for that, because whatever you're doing to show up as you do is working, it is powerful, it is beautiful, and it's very needed. So thank you. And what I also love is that, amazing, someone else who's like been down this rabbit hole, like Tartaria, and or someone else who's like down the fasting and fruitarian piece, or someone else who's like into the simulation theory stuff, right? So I'm just like, wow, like there's some parallel journey going on there, right? So I definitely want to make sure that we touch on all of those things. But before we do dive in, one of the things I saw the other day was your exchange with someone about trying to get on Russell Brand's podcast, and they were throwing out the controlled opposition stuff and all of that, and you just gave this beautiful response about unity consciousness. And so it just struck me that perhaps it might be a beautiful thing. Are there any words or intentions that you might like to set and share before we dive in? Really honoring that piece of, we have gathered here with a deep passion ultimately for unity consciousness. And so if there's anything you'd love to share to kick us off, I'd really appreciate that.
Yes. So always my intention when I do any interviews or create any events or podcasts or anything like that is to be used as a vessel for the highest good of all. What that means to me is I believe we are here to create this shift in consciousness. And you are doing it every single day, every single one of you. We all have our roles to play in this beautiful movie that we live in. I literally believe this is a game, not metaphorically, not any. Literally, this is a game, and we can hack the game. We can play with it, and you have different characters in the game. Sometimes, in some lifetimes, we play the heroes, and sometimes in other lifetimes, we play the villains. And I do something called hypnotherapy and regression therapy, and I literally take people on journeys to find the root causes of their issues in their life. And so often we go to these different versions of reality. Time doesn't exist in the way that we think it does, so everything is happening now, just in a different place, and you can shift your consciousness to those different places. That's really easy to do once you learn how to become calm and tap into something I call the no-thingness. It's the state where there's no mind, George. We call it the quantum state, where you can access all of this wisdom in the quantum field. So when you do this, and one of my teachers, he's done thousands of these. I've only done hundreds of client sessions. He's done thousands. You see that sometimes in life, you want to have the experience of being on the good team. Let's say you're playing a game of chess. You want to be the white pieces. And then next time, some other aspect of the oneness wants to be the black pieces. So, and then you switch. And sometimes you're the Jedis, and sometimes you're the Sith, and you switch. And so the more times you do these regression processes, the more you just see, oh wow, okay, these people who are now on our planet doing these things which we think are crazy, they're actually giving us this perfect opportunity to be the heroes. And that's not saying we condone it, it's not saying it's right, it's not saying it doesn't create suffering. But any movie or game that you probably love has drama and tension, suffering, chaos. Like if there were no stakes, the game's usually not that fun. There has to be some kind of stake, right? There has to be something on the line. And so what has happened to me after thousands of hours of meditation, and I lived with a shaman for 18 months. I've done hundreds of ceremonies all over the world with all different kinds of shamans. I'm now in such a relaxed place where even when I see something like they're trying to block out the sun, I go, wow, okay, good move. That's a real interesting move. Black pieces on the chessboard. Now, what are the white pieces going to do? And this is this is a concept that if you read the Vedas, one of my friends, he's a beautiful Vedic teacher, and they predict that you have these cycles. And we're entering this cycle, this golden age, right, where the light will prevail, and it's all like predestined. It's like a game. It's literally, this is okay. We're playing this game again now, and so whether you believe it's true or not, what you can choose every moment is if you want to be relaxed and calm and function from this place of creativity and power, empowerment, or you can choose to let these things that happen in the world upset you and take you out of your power and make you in fight or flight mode. And that's a part of the trap. When they try to block out the sun, George, which I'm sure you know about,
Yeah.
what I tap in and I say, why would they do that? And how can that help me play my game? Because everything's to help us. Things working out for us. This is a beautiful
Yeah.
universe. I call it the cosmos. It loves us. Everything is for us. I was brought up to believe that the sun was damaging. It causes cancer. You have to wear sunscreen. Don't stay in the sun too long or you'll get burned. And the sun was demonized. It was, absolutely. Now I've gone into my holistic journey and fasting and like basically trying to live closer to nature. Obviously the sun is like the source of energy and light and gives us all our fruits and foods, and I don't wear sunscreen anymore. We don't put sunscreen on our daughters. I go out even in the winter. I go out bare chested to get the sun because it triggers thousands of reactions in your body. Now it takes something crazy like a lockdown or them blocking out the sun to make people go, well, actually maybe we need the sun. They try and lock you down and you go, actually maybe we should be more free. Like,
Yeah.
these
Yeah.
crazy things happen, but it's all for us. That's how I choose to play the game. If you choose to play the game differently as well, I honor your way. If you're enjoying it, keep going. If you're not enjoying it, try this on as a possibility.
Yeah. Very well said. Very well said. And yeah, the it's strange that we'll talk a bit more about the simulation in a bit, but the even in say they create these simulations and they got these incredible VR games, right? But one of the greatest metaphors I've ever come across for how to think about this is that we are in a PlayStation game where our soul or whatever is there controlling our little avatar in this little simulation, and it's a very liberating thing to just get that perspective of yeah, life is a beautiful game that we choose to play, and for me too, an infinite game that one of the most powerful frames of reference that I've really taken on is that this is a almost like this is a play based learning simulation for souls, so that they may graduate on to be able to run their own solar systems, universes, and it's an ever expanding part of the great love that flows through all things, experiencing itself delightfully.
Yeah, you can choose for it to be whatever kind of movie you want.
Yeah,
And some people love horror movies. They do. And their life is like a horror movie. And one of my closest friends, he had a really challenging marriage and it was awful. And I'm very aware of whatever we consume, we become. It says you are what you eat, and it doesn't just mean the food, it means the things. And I'm like, what TV shows do you like? And he loves soap operas. And there's one we have in England called EastEnders, and he'd like never miss an episode of EastEnders. His life became like EastEnders because he's training his reticular activating system in his brain to say drama is
Yeah.
important to me. And in EastEnders and these soap operas, people are cheating on you and leaving you, and they're psychotic and there's violence. And if you're watching that, that's what your
Every
reality.
day coding in. This is what life is like. This is what life is like. This is what life is like.
Well, this is what I like. This is
Yeah.
what I like. This is important to me. Show me more of this, please.
Yeah.
And so we have to hack what we train our reticular activating system to. And a lot of spiritual people talk about doing things like a gratitude journal, right? And I just shared something recently. So it's about, people know about triggers and how triggers can affect us, but there's something called glimmers.
Yeah.
So glimmer is kind of the opposite of a trigger. It's something that makes you realize how beautiful life is. And if you're constantly going through your day looking for glimmers, you can find them. You can find a flower and a tree and you can see a little child smiling. But if you are constantly watching BBC News and you're seeing all of the worst things happening in the world, and this is one of the reasons why we started the Truth Speakers Network, is because we want to show unbiased news.
Yeah.
So you can fill your subconscious mind with what is actually happening, because the world is a beautiful place and most of the people in the world are beautiful. And you only see this very crazy lens that the mainstream media with Project Mockingbird show you, right? They want you to use your brain, because your brain is one of the most powerful pieces of technology ever invented. They pump your brain with all of this war and terror. You then project that out into the world, and you tell the cosmos that you want more and more and more of it.
Yeah.
So if you just turn off the news, or go and switch and look at conscious news channels, everything changes for you.
Yeah, it certainly does. Like, I genuinely, it's not even really plugging into all of the whole conspiracy stuff. I used to be like, oh, what's the next thing? What's the Davos crowd? All of that stuff. Like, just actually, I'm letting go of all that. My day is now much more, the closer I can be to nature, the more I can be on what I feel like is my mission. Then I feel wealth and abundance. Even though, like, right now, scrapping in a startup, like the financial abundance is like everything going into the startup, right? But there is such a richness in my life because I have so many opportunities to experience those glimmers, like you said. And I don't want to gloss over one of the things you said that people could miss. Such a key, like, in terms of how we own our focus, where you said, whatever is going on, how can this help me to play my game better? Like, that is like, it's that shift of life happens to me or for me or through me, and there's other levels, right? But I really want to make sure we get that for people, because it's such a key piece. It's like, that is where your power lies, in that moment of choice, love or fear. So thank you for highlighting that. It's really, really important.
Yeah, and by the way, everyone, I'm not saying I 100%, I'm always in peace and love. I got really triggered the other day. Um, there was this big dump of chemicals over our homes. It was all over our cars. It's in the news. They called it Sahara sand, but it's just nonsense. Some people analyzed it, and you can see it has all these heavy metals in, and it's crazy. But we have, the truth is, right, the people who are onto this stuff, we can debunk things so quickly, and it's minutes now we debunk the stuff. So they analyzed it and they saw it's all these heavy metals, and I didn't know about it. And I took my daughter into our garden, and we were just playing on the grass. She's 6 months old. And then I noticed she gets a rash on her body, and I start to get, my feet start to burn and they're a bit itchy. Then I come in the house and I see that stuff all over the cars.
Yeah.
And I'm like, they got us. Good move. You're right. But I got angry because, we grow strawberries and we grow, different things in our garden. And now I don't want my daughter to eat them. And I'm like, you made it so I can't even go on my own grass. And, great move, Black Pieces.
Yeah.
That was a good one. You really messed with me there. So then what do we do? What's the counter? And it's not like it's a war. I hear people talking about it's a spiritual war. If you play a game of Monopoly and you treat it like a war, it's probably not going to be the most fun, right? Why do you play a game? You play it to have fun, probably. But a lot of us maybe take it too seriously. And so they make their move, and I go, and they've got all these rollouts of all the different things they try and inject us with, and like, great move, you got us making our whole bodies toxic as soon as we're born, like smart, you know. And it's like, oh, well done, you've trained us to eat this junk food that
Yeah.
turns off our epigenetics. That's
Yeah.
smart, you know. You got something. And so what can we do? So I doubled down. I created this thing called the Visionaries Conference, and we've got like 750 people in there now, and we meet once a month and we get together and we start projects, and we're building health centers all around the world. We just launched a project to reform the healthcare system, to reform the education system, and we've launched a project to reform the food production system. It's like, get the best minds on the white team. You know, I'm just using that chess analogy.
Yeah.
I used to play chess quite a lot. And if someone takes one of your pieces in chess, do you get upset? Would you cry? Would you like? It wouldn't serve you. It's a part of the game, isn't it? That pieces get taken, and then when the game's finished, you just put the pieces back on again.
Yeah.
It's kind of how I see life. So it makes it a lot easier to play.
It's like choosing to play your game, not theirs, right? Like the Buckminster Fuller said, you don't change the system by fighting it. You change it by building a new one that makes the old one obsolete, right? So I really like that shift of focus. Again, it's always like what is my power and choice here. So nice. Alrighty, so got a few bits I can show you on the whole Tartaria stuff. So we've got Tartaria, high tech history. We've got fasting and human potential, decoding the simulation. Any of those like jumping out at you to dive into?
Yes, everyone who is tuning in right now, 90% of what you learned in school was complete nonsense. History, his story that you have been told, has been written by the victors of the wars. They burned the libraries of the people who were telling the other side of the story. They literally rewrote the books. I'm not
Yes.
saying like
Yes.
metaphorically, they literally rewrote the books like the Bible. Right? They changed what their version of history was. And if you've ever dived into the Tartaria rabbit hole, or ancient Egypt, you can see they had technology so advanced. We don't even know how to do that now, the stuff that they were doing.
No.
And the truth about our galactic history as well, and what our star brothers and star sisters and what different ET races have had in human history. If you look at the giants, this whole piece around how humans used to be like 4 times bigger than we are now, and we're actually the dwarfs, like we're teeny compared to. You see these huge doors in the buildings and these books that we can't even pick up now. There is a plot to make you believe that your ancestors were unintelligent peasants with pitchforks,
Yeah.
and that is so far from the truth.
Yeah.
Your ancestors were intelligent, they had incredible technology, even had free energy systems. They were able to access their psychic gifts and abilities. They knew about healing before pharmaceuticals. Pharmaceuticals only came around in the petrochemical ones in like early 1900s. Before that, everything was holistic healing. Holistic healing was the mainstream healing.
Yeah.
Your body is a healing machine. That is one of its functions. When you let it, when you stop filling it with junk, it does magic. So fasting unlocks so much. It's like our body is this vehicle, this amazing supercomputer, more powerful than any spaceship or race car ever made. And we're just not given the instruction manual when we're born on purpose.
Yeah.
Because when you learn that when you fast, your body goes into ketosis, and then when your body's in ketosis, it has literally different functions than when you're constantly eating all the time. When you're fasting, you get such deeper connection. You heal disease. So many different things happen. And most people never let themselves do that because we've been programmed to eat as soon as we wake up and eat right before we go to bed. But breakfast, breaking your fast, our ancestors didn't even used to eat when they first woke up. There is this doctor called Dr. Kellogg's. This is in my book, by the way. My book's called Find Your Truth. It's a doctor called Dr. Kellogg's. If you know Kellogg's cereals, he literally went into some health magazines and said, you need to start your day by eating this like high carbohydrate thing. And he made all these cereals and became very, very wealthy from it. No one used to eat that stuff. No one, almost no one, used to drink cow's milk. Cow's milk was used as a survival technology in different tribes where they couldn't grow crops, and it wasn't a mainstream thing until after the First World War. In the UK, during the First World War, they needed a way to ship food to soldiers, so they asked farmers to grow uh, to create more dairy, and they turned it into powdered milk they could send over. And after the war, no one wanted that milk. And then the government, the UK government and the US government, they had to start promoting this for the dairy farmers. And now that's why the government do the milk ads. They are obliged contractually to advertise dairy
Yeah.
because it's not a natural food for humans. And so there's so much brainwashing, George, that we've had. And I invite every single one of you to just question everything you put in your mouth. Why am I eating this? Question everything you listen to, including me, and question all the behaviors that you have, the habits, the addictions, and just figure out how can you be your optimal self. What is the highest possible version of yourself you're able to embody in this lifetime? Because when you are that, you become a very powerful player in this chess game.
Yeah. And I think that's to build on that, like that question everything. Like for me, everything right now is inverted. That what they're saying is health is going to make you ill. That what they're saying is education is going to dumb you down. That what they're saying is best for the planet is going to enslave slash toxify it, right? And it just take any area of life, and the inversion is so profound. It's it's actually kind of mind blowing on some level. And like you said, there's a part of me like I'm like, wow, hat tip to you, fair play, fair play. Other side of the chessboard, to have inverted reality to this extent. Like that takes some hell of a doing. Like, whew, you guys pulled off something there. But to them see it and go, okay, yeah, it does change everything.
One of the cool things that we have now, and I just rewatched the fourth Matrix movie. So if anyone doesn't know, there was a new Matrix movie that came out in 2021 called Matrix Resurrections. I just rewatched it, and they basically up leveled the Matrix, and they plug Neo back in, right? And they told him that the Matrix was a game and that he invented. He is the inventor of a game. So he still has his memories, but now he thinks it's a game that he played. And he talks about these things called modals. Modals are simulations built within simulations in order to refine the original simulation. So my background's in software, computer software, so I know about computer coding and developing, and I see that we are literal code, we're DNA, and they can create designer babies now, George. They can literally go and say, yeah, I want one with blue eyes and brown hair, and I want it to be this tall, and they do this genetic snipping, and they do it with animals as well. And it's a wild time. And when I watched that fourth Matrix movie, and I watched I love watching Marvel superhero things as well. There was a new one called Secret Invasion, and it said there's a point where you cannot tell the difference between reality and fiction, where what you see on the news and what you see on the website will be so different that it's almost pointless to even go and watch. And that's where we are now. Like it's almost impossible to tell the difference between a deep fake video and an actual video, an AI generated image and an actual image. And so I shared something recently which looked so real, and then found out it was an AI image. I'm like, oh man, how do you trust your eyes?
Yeah, yeah,
And this is a part of the game that we're in now, where we have to learn to make decisions not just based on our physical eyes, because we have been deceived for the longest time. And it was just 9/11 recently, and anyone who has watched I remember watching it on the TV that first day, and seeing these planes hit these buildings, and it was real for me, and I had such a real reaction. And the moon landing in 1969, right? It's like people, it was real for people. And then now we know, because we have the ability to literally, there's software you can put videos into, and it shows you which parts are CGI. And so now we've got this thing where we are just destroying history,
yeah.
conventional, and we get to remake it. Now, will we ever know the absolute truth? I don't even know. I don't even know. I think everyone has these different versions of the truth, and it's fascinating. I
Yeah.
listen to one person and they say that the moon is an alien base and you can teleport there. It takes 4 minutes to get there, and inside it's like office blocks, and there's 64 alien races that live on the moon, and they all work in harmony with humans. And then I see it, and they're a really intelligent person channeling
Yeah.
beautifully. And then
Yeah.
there's another person who says the moon's made out of plasma. Then there's another person who says the moon is a spaceship that was brought here because they destroyed our original moon. And then you're like, all three of you are brilliant people.
Yeah.
You all talk a lot of sense. How do you even decide? And so this is the next chapter of the game, I think, George, where there will be multiple different truths happening within this one simulation, multiple modals, multiple different things, and
Well, I think,
softening around it will be a big part, because if you get so attached to
yeah.
my truth is the only truth, uh, I think that's possibly not the most fun way to play the game.
Yeah. And I think, the example of modals you use there is that, the reality is there's a almost like within the overarching simulation, there is 8 billion like individual modal simulations, right? That if you perceive, okay, the Earth is flat, great, you're going to find some evidence for that because that is the reality tunnel that you're creating. Equally, if you perceive the Earth as a globe, you're like, well, look at all this evidence for the globe because your reality is going to be shaped by what you're projecting out into your unique modal simulation. Um, so since we're on that, what's when you and I last spoke, probably neither of us were on the simulation tip, right? So, what's been your journey to discover that? Were there any kind of pivotal people or ideas or concepts you came across that really guided that process?
Yeah, so I did my first workshop on this in 2018. It's on YouTube. You can go check it out. Type in Luke Scott simulation theory on YouTube. You can find it. And when I had my awakening in 2016, I knew for a fact this was a simulation,
Mm.
because I'm able to access all these different timelines and all these different parallel realities. So I can take my clients, I teach something called regression therapy, quantum regression, QRIT, and I can take them into these different timelines. Like there's a version of me, I call him Business Luke. He owns these big skyscrapers and he's got this huge global company, and he's a very powerful version of me. And there's a version of you that's almost everything you can possibly imagine. I can go and see versions of me that live on different planets as that are non-humanoid, and it feels so real when you go there. And this is one of the things about this game that we live in. There's evidence to back up everything, like you said. So in Michael Newton's work, if
Yeah,
anyone knows Michael Newton, he's got these
love it.
books called
Love
Journey
it.
of Souls and Destiny of Souls. He's a hypnotherapist, done thousands of sessions, and he believes that theory that you said, where this is like a university, an academy, and we're learning, and we're here to embody different aspects of of divinity, of the oneness, and then we review our life, and then we come back as something else. But remember, time doesn't exist in the way we think it does. So every version of you exists now. So you are having an infinite number of lifetimes now. And I was just listening to a book called Conversations with God by Neil Donald Walsh. So I've interviewed Neil on my channel. You can find him on my YouTube channel as well, several times. His books are millions bestsellers. He's been talking about this stuff since the 80s. And in book 3, it says, we are literally one. Like there is literally one thing. There's one soul. We are all different individuations of the one soul. Everyone, even the ones that you call good or bad, that evil has to exist so that good can mean anything. Otherwise, if everything's just good, there's no game to play. And it said, I've just literally listened to this today. I said, well, why did I choose to be born not remembering that? It says, if you were born with full remembrance of who you are, the game would be over. You don't want the game to be
Yeah,
over. You want to
yeah,
play this. And I see so many of my beautiful friends who are stuck thinking, and I see them saying, I'm never going to reincarnate on Earth again. Why did I choose to come here? I can't wait to get off this game, right? Or whatever. And I'm like, you're missing the point. You are literally God. You chose to be here. You are the oneness. You have just been taken so far away from finding the joy in life. That's one of the things I just love to help people to remember, George, is like how beautiful this life is. But it's like any movie, it has ups and downs,
yeah.
has car crashes, it has moments where you're like, can I even do
Yeah.
this?
The the all is lost moment in every movie. It's like where you have the mini peak where the hero feels like he's got it and he does something, and then but in that there's a moment of pride or something where he or she is like, and then they fall and they everything appears to be lost, and that's when we're like, that's where the magic of the movie of the game is. And if we knew the score of the World Cup final before they even kicked a ball, who's watching that game? It's not. So. Truth is, the score's already been done, but we want the game.
There's a movie called Arrivals. If you've seen it, it's about this alien race that come to Earth, and they teach us their language. And their language is not bound by time like ours is. Our language is quite time-based. Theirs doesn't have past or present or future. And once you learn their language, you are no longer bound by time. And you can see every single thing that will ever happen in your whole entire life. And then the part of the movie is like, if that was the case, would you even want to live your life? If you knew every single thing that would happen throughout the whole day. So this collective amnesia that we choose, but not all of us choose it. I was just watching a podcast with Aubrey Marcus recently, and he interviewed someone who has full remembrance of all of their previous incarnations. I say previous, I don't really mean previous because they're all happening now, simultaneous incarnations. And so you sit with this person and they have full remembrance of you. They can see every version of you that exists. Now that's kind of hard to function as a human. And this is Neo version of the Matrix, right? And you can all become a Yeshua, a Buddha, a Krishna. You can all do that if you choose to. But most of you would go insane if that was the case. If your psychic gifts all activated and now you could see an infinite number of me's and an infinite number of Georges, it would probably just drive us insane. So bit by bit, piece by piece, we can turn on our gifts and abilities. And this was what happened with me in 2016. And I got this connection to, I call it the energy that creates everything. Been on a journey, George, with spirituality and religion. And I don't resonate with the word God anymore. I used to. I don't. I'm very conscious of language. The English language is a bit of a trap. So English language was made around the 1500s by the church, and it's got lots of traps and spells in it. And so when people pray to God, and I love etymology, so I started learning Arabic and learning Aramaic, so I could go to these sacred texts and actually learn about God, because I didn't really like how it felt. Any book that tells you God is a man is a mistranslation. In Aramaic, in Arabic, God has no gender. So any translation of the Quran that tells you God is a he, it's because in the Arabic language, God has a masculine pronoun. It's like, in Spanish, bread is el pan. It's a masculine pronoun, but it's not. Bread isn't a man, right? And so there's this trap that they've put us into. And I find words are signposts, and it's kind of hard for people to differentiate when I say God. They have this assumption it's a man. So I come away from it. I call it the energy that creates everything. That's the best way I can describe it. The energy that turns an apple seed into an apple tree and makes an apple tree produce apples every year. That's what I connect into now, that infinite intelligence, that quantum field, that magic. And so from that place, these different psychic gifts and abilities started to come on board. And I learned about things like instant healing, quantum healing, which is what we teach now. It's actually my big mission. I do this channeled writing. I woke up at 3 a.m. one day, I grabbed my pen and it told me, create 1 million quantum healers by 2027. This is how you transform the world. So that's what we teach now. I have a course. I'm literally running it in this weekend, in 2 days, Saturday, Sunday, if anyone wants to join. It's called Quantum Regression. You learn how to be a quantum healer in 2 days. You get a certificate. And then you can go and do that with clients. And when you learn how to play in the quantum, we call it quantum embodiment, you become like Neo in the Matrix. You can heal people. And when I say you, I mean like the bigger you, right? This energy that creates everything, which is what you are. You can literally heal people. You can literally snap people out of the Matrix, like the red pill. And I love, we did our first podcast a while ago called Red Pill and Chill. You can go around red pilling people all the time. And that's what we do. We remind people, and in conversations with God, it says there's nothing you need to learn. You just have to remember.
Yeah.
and we get a lot of clues in the movies. So I am always on the lookout for these glimmers, these things that remind me how the nature of the game really works.
Yeah. To that end, one of the things that's been rewiring my brain, you spoke earlier about the idea of, giants is one of the biggest smoking guns in terms of how our history has been redacted, right? Because every single culture on the planet talks about giants. That what we were having some mass hallucination and fantasy? No, like because we've seen that the skeletons are there, all of the old newspapers, right? And so, but the thing that's been rewiring my brain as well is, well, okay, if we were in an atmosphere that supported gigantic human size, what about then the flora and fauna to go with that? And so the kind of a while back there was that video that did the rounds, like there are no trees on flat Earth, right? And like everyone in the conspiracy space seemed to have watched it at some point, and but it was suggesting that a lot of the mountains that we see are the remnants of giant ancient trees, and I was like, oh, that's like fractally that makes sense. I can see that the way the things have snapped off, snap bit of wood, snap bit of silicon, giant thing, it looks the same. But it's not been until recently that that possibility has really landed. And there's a couple of folks doing amazing work. One called Stellium 7 on YouTube, and another called Hangman 1128 on YouTube. And they are breaking down scientifically the science behind petrification, i.e., turning things to stone, and that what we are looking at so often, if we look at the ways the kind of the tissue would layer up in a tree, we are able to then go, okay, well, that is literally that exact same tissue at a gargantuan size. And so, putting those hints in movies, of course, we've all seen Avatar with the home tree. That like, and how emotional. I don't know about you, but how emotional is it when home tree falls? Like it's like, all right, no, is this? There's something about seeing those vast trees that like for me taps into that quantum memory, that awakening of the memory of a time when our entire kind of realm was so very different. Jack and the Beanstalk, this giant plant that stretches up to the heavens, right? And there is a giant who lives there, right? There's something about that that's been absolutely blowing me away as well recently. Rewiring my brain around what is our history.
Yeah, if you go and look up what happened around World War II, and even before that, around the 1750s, when they decided to wipe Tartaria off the map, and they literally burned the records of anyone who talked about it. But one of my friends, he's Egyptian, he's in his 60s. They're still taught about Tartaria in Egypt. Like
Huh,
that was a part of his upbringing.
yeah,
But in the Western world, we're not. And there's some fascinating pieces around it because, yeah, you see the mountains and they are trees, right? They are petrified trees, and you see that they look like animals and they have scales, and
yeah,
it's like, and you see this brickwork that they do that you just couldn't even do nowadays, like with any of our technology, and these temples that they built out of the sides of mountains. And there's so many different theories about, did they have sound technology? Was it lasers? Were they just manifesting with their mind back then? Did they know how to just do that? Just instant manifestation.
yeah.
And again, it's like when you open your eyes to these things, there are so many big red flags. And one of the ones which was really funny for me was the dinosaur one. Have you been down the dinosaurs don't exist rabbit hole?
A bit like I guess I'm just open to they're probably like giant lizards, and again, dragons are in every stories and mythologies, every oral tradition speaks of dragons, right? Okay, so if we know that giants did exist and the dragons are as prevalent as giants, okay, well then there's probably something there, right?
Well, the people who wrote the history books had a bit of a problem because they kept digging things up and they kept finding these huge bones. And you could tell that they could not belong to our version of humans.
Yeah,
And so they had to come up with some kind of story of what these huge bones were. And, if you see a femur that's like 4 times longer than ours, what can that possibly be? And so this idea of dinosaurs, it was around the 1800s. They literally made these artistic impressions of what a T-Rex would look like
yeah,
based on the bones, and that is now what we say it is, but it was artists who made it up just based off what they envisioned it to be. And it's wild. And I've watched some podcasts of people who are experts in dinosaur fossils, right? And they debate these people who say dinosaurs don't exist. And there are literally these factories that manufacture dinosaur bones. And when
Yeah,
you go to a museum, you never see the actual bone. It's always a replica and it's indistinguishable. You can't tell. And they don't let most people actually play with the real bones, right? Because what they would find probably, and they just literally released uh, 2 days ago, this mummified remains of what they're saying are aliens from 1,000 years ago or something, and it just looks crazy. It looks like some kind of fake art project, and they say that the DNA in those mummified alien remains is not human. And so, if people were actually allowed to analyze these bones, I think they would know a lot of them were human,
yeah,
that actually were giants or dragons or different creatures that were huge back then. And we're just not allowed to know the truth of it. And it's only been recently, it's like since the 1800s, not that long.
yeah. There was a couple of guys who were like, competing to find the most dinosaurs, and like they just be like, oh, this one's a, and they just make up a load of names and stick a saurus on the end of it. So it's and it's zero science behind it for sure. And I think the 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 fascinating one for me that has been like you said, once you see it, you can't unsee it. And so one of the like I'll just quickly share. I don't know if you've ever seen it. Well, let me get this one up. I think it is. Let's go here. So let me show on the screen. Show on stream. So this is a an image of allegedly a medical college in Calcutta, established in 1835. Just look at that, right? Um,
They had this. They had this stuff in ancient Greece.
yeah. So here's a few things, right? So look at this. This is hilarious, right? Ancient Egyptian temple, Victorian factory. Look at the similarities there, right? It's especially the flourish on the tops of the pillars. It is borderline identical. So once you like, the thing here is to go. We've just the key piece that you said with the dinosaurs, right, and the globe Earth, right. That what are the first things you do as a kid, right? You get a toy dinosaur and you get a toy globe, right? So from the very start of your consciousness forming, you are being given the spatial shapes of how to interpret the world, right? And so we've not thought to go, hang on, how did they make this, right? And then like, look at this, look at all these curves and stuff. Like it's just unbelievable. Now,
And the
where is
cathedrals from the 1500s when we were
yeah,
supposed to be
yeah.
peasants with pitchforks.
But the biggest one of like, if you want a bit of a smoking gun, right? This is, I believe, the post office in Sydney, right? So think about how many people got shipped. Like the official narrative is, a load of convicts got shipped over there from the UK, and they built Australia. Think of the skill required and the manpower required to build a building like that. And there's loads of them, right, in Australia. Just pause and go, this isn't to don't do anyone down, but to say you would literally need not to be shipping a load of convicts over, but you would need to be shipping an army of highly skilled stonemasons to have even the faintest hope of creating the amount of buildings that were there. And so and these are all over the world, these style of buildings. And that's been for me of going, okay, I can't now unsee the possibility that we adopted an entire standing civilization or standing buildings from a civilization that vanished. So yeah, that is just a few little bits to share there. These are
Yeah.
the YouTube channels I was talking about. This is Stellium Seven's YouTube channel where the ancient trees, Hangman 1128 as well. My introduction to simulation theory came through a YouTube channel, a guy called Jason Brashears from Archaics, where he's into calendrics. He spent 26 years in a Texas prison. Have you come across him, by the way?
No.
Oh, mate, dude. So he spent 26 years in a Texas prison where he had access to all of the old prison library books. So you spoke about the libraries being burned, right? After World War II, all of the education system changing, right? He had access to all of these old books that were debunking Ice Age theory, that were debunking geology theory, right? Of millions of years of strata and fossils and that. And he found out, analyzing a whole host of different calendars, that there is a perfect 138-year reset protocol built into our reality. That somewhere around the world, every 138 years, this red dust will fall from the sky and natural cataclysms will occur and a whole host of stuff occurs, right? And
Was that what was on my car the other day?
yeah, could be. So, but I mean, that is very true. It's like that. And his whole thing is that the entire stellar sphere, like the sky is a simulation, right? And that there's these woodcuts from the 1500s where the sky simulations seem to break down and there's these giant machines that just appear in the sky. And obviously these folk have they're trying to woodcut as best they can what they're seeing in the sky, right? So that's been, yeah, archaics, and it stands for what is it? Something advanced research of calendrical history of chronological history of artificial intelligence X. His take is that within this particular simulation that we exist in, it got hijacked by a rogue AI. That's his, and it's a really kind of compelling possibility. But whether you buy into that or not, his mathematical breakdown and the charts he's made that show the calendrics of how perfectly, like beyond, like there's the maths is too perfect to the nth degree to be anything but, he says, a simulation. So it's really fascinating. And then finally, just on this whole thing, interesting that David Icke's latest book is all about how we exist in a simulation and the multiple levels of the different kind of dimensions of consciousness of that simulation. So yeah, it's just there's just a lot there for you to dive into. I just wanted to make sure that folks had some sense of things if they wanted it. Let me see. There we go. Where's our thing? There we go. No, we are. Where have we gone? Who knows?
I can see you.
There we go. There we go. We're back. We've got our original view. There we go.
So George, I don't know that particular person that you shared, but I would just encourage everyone, when you're listening to people, including me and George, if you're in this place, this quantum state, this theta brainwave state, this place of nothingness, we become like human lie detectors, right? We can resonate with the things that are true for us. Yes. And sometimes when I watch these YouTube videos, you know, what they're saying is great, but I don't like the way they're saying it. I'm not saying that particular person because I don't know him. But I watched someone and they were talking what I'm saying, but they had so much fear in their voice when they were talking about it. And there's this big idea about this idea that we are in a false light trap, and when you die, you see the light, and we're being harvested by these aliens. And right, that might be true, or it might not be true. They were instilling, or trying to instill, but I'm immune to it, so much fear into me. And I'm like, I don't want to listen to you anymore. That's not going to make my game more fun.
Yes.
I'll take the information. Like, please present me the information. I'll decide if I want to use that in my strategy. But you're living your life in fear, and you're making people scared of dying, right? Which is a big trap. And they were telling me that yoga is satanic, and so I dived into that. And they tell me that meditation opens you up to these entities, and so they're like trying to make you scared of all of these different things. And I ended up, there was a few people coming on my social media, and they were commenting all the time, and I just had to block them. That's a new phase in my life at the moment, and you might call it building an echo chamber. But if someone is trying to bring me into a version of the game that I don't like, if they're trying to like tell me I have to be scared of something, I'm not into it, because when I die, if there is a light, I will know what to do.
Yeah.
Because I am infinite intelligence, and there's no consequences if I go into this light and then I get reincarnated again. Then that's what's supposed to happen, and I'll play the game again.
There's some more games, yeah, exactly.
And it's the blink of an eye in this span of eternity, right? Yeah. And I make a joke about it. Michael Newton talks about it in his books. I say it playfully. It's like when we die, he says we go to this soul kingdom, we review our life, and then it's like we're in an arcade. We just put another pound in the slot machine, and we just say, yeah, I'm going to go again. And we like play another life. And because I was such a big computer game geek, I can see that it really makes sense to me. I don't have fear of dying. I don't want to die right now. I'm enjoying the game. The game's just getting really good for me. I worked through all my trauma, and I like figured out how to be powerful. It would be like being halfway through the first Matrix movie where you just learned how to use your superpowers, and then the movie ends. You're like, no, I wanted to see how far I can take these superpowers. So I really encourage everyone who's tuning in, if you watch this, if you watch those videos and they resonate with you, and and they fill you with hope, and they empower you, great. If you come away feeling disempowered, I don't watch those kind of documentaries anymore. There's one that I watched. It was this 3 hour long documentary all about human trafficking and child trafficking,
Yeah.
and it called The Fall of the Cabal, and it ruined me for about 2 weeks. And I don't think it actually uplifted my life. It's like it was information I already knew. I didn't quite know it to that depth of like having those examples,
Yeah.
but the detrimental effect on my health of watching that was not worth it. I do not watch those things anymore.
Mm-hmm.
I will sit with someone who's an expert in it. We'll have a conversation around it. But I think a lot of these pieces that are made nowadays, they're made from people who have great intentions, but they're just so instilled with fear. Why? Because that's what people like when they watch movies at the moment.
Yeah.
They like to watch a movie that makes you feel all of those things. And there's this idea that we can create new conscious media. But would people go and watch a movie, George, where nothing bad happens? Where everything's just chill, everything's just nice?
You got to have a spark, right? But at the same time, you've also got to be able to maintain that it's a movie, right? And I think you're absolutely right. I know I want to respect your time. You said you've got to head off in about 5 minutes, right? So want to make sure we don't lose one of the things you said there, which is like you're in a phase where you are blocking people who are coming in with a certain kind of energy into your comments and stuff. And it's no, like to hold a boundary like that is an act of love. You're letting the world know how you want to be loved and treated, and what they can expect from you as well. And so I really kind of just wanted to honor that, because it's the one of the things about the whole spiritual community can be, it's got to be all love and light, and yeah, it can be, but no, here's my line, right? Don't cross my line. That's it's okay to have that.
This is a really unique time, George, where I studied psychology for like 20 years now. I love studying tribes and how tribes work. And we bought land in Mexico. We've got 30 families. We're making a go of living together. We're like 2 years into that project now.
Mm-hmm.
First houses are almost finished, and we want to grow all our own food and live off the land. And I've been working on that for a while, and we finally made it happen. And we want to build these communities all over the world. And if you look at this theory of community building, there's this idea that the human brain can only have around 150 meaningful relationships.
Yep.
Like to remember their name and a bit about their life and like their interests, like anything more than that, it's not possible currently with the way most people's brains work. Now, for the last 10 years or however long it's been, we've had this social media, and I've got 5,000 friends on my Facebook, and I've got 40 something thousand on my Instagram, and I've got 15,000 on my LinkedIn. And everybody thinks that they can have a piece of me, and and I do value the people on there that when I go through my feed and they light me up, and I go, wow. And it's stuff like this. I would watch stuff like this, right? Anyone who I know, when I scroll through the feed, if they're posting something that just makes me go, ugh, just gone. And I sat with someone recently who has, we decided we have about 98% in common. We did a podcast. His podcast is actually called The Red Pill Buddha. He's a carnivore, and I'm primarily fruitarian, and I do animal rights activism. And he said, look, fruit is not food to me. He said, the only thing I can eat is meat. If you're telling me I can't eat meat, I will literally die. And I'm saying, fruit is only food for me. I could literally never eat meat. If you're telling me I can't eat fruit, then I don't know what I'll do, And so we're both there, both beautiful humans, both intelligent, both conscious. And it's called a divine dichotomy, right? It's like, how can you be with these seemingly opposing viewpoints and find love? And I think this is one of the big things we're here to do right now. All the people in the world who are blocking out the sun, poisoning the food, who created this Rockefeller school system and Rockefeller pharmaceutical industry and medical schools and all of the craziness that's happening. You can be angry. Anger is a very powerful motivator. When that stuff was sprayed on my car, on my garden, and on my crops the other day, I got pissed. And I used that as momentum, because I know how to use anger now.
Yes.
I know how to use sadness. I know how to use grief. They are useful emotions. And a lot of the best songs and movies are written from those places of grief and sadness and heartbreak. And, it's like these people who are doing this stuff in the world, we can use that. And I think these inversions that you talk about, we're going to flip them all around. When the technologies that are suppressed actually come out, all of these things that they're doing, this 2030 plan to basically make us all be like bees in beehives with barcodes, we're not into that. So we have a 2027 plan. By 2027, for the majority of the world to be thriving. So right now, the majority of the world are in survival mode. They're worried about food and shelter and basics.
Yep.
By 2027, this is what we're doing with our visionaries. Anyone can join it. Just search for the Visionaries with Luke on Facebook. It's a Telegram group as well, the Visionaries with Luke. Come join us. Come meet with us. Let's, by 2027, get the majority of people living in unity consciousness. That's 51% or more of people living in oneness consciousness. And by 2027, for holistic healthcare to be the mainstream healthcare. Once these technologies come out, which are already like, full disclosure is imminent, surely, George. I don't know what you think about that, but it's almost impossible to suppress this truth any longer. It's like so ripe and ready to just burst, and I'm all for it. And yeah, then
Well,
they
so, I
post
mean,
these
I,
they post
I
these
came, I
mummied
came across
aliens and stuff,
I came across a patent for an over Unity device yesterday on Google. Like, so the fact that I can randomly stumble across an over Unity device patent on Google tells you a lot, right?
Yeah.
Luke, I really want to appreciate you. And I think one of the things that we've said without saying it to close up with is you've spoken about so much. I hear like coming into the heart, that our mind is a wonderful thing, but that it cannot know all of this stuff. It's going to try and work it all out. The thing that's really can support us to discern our truth for our path, for our greatest gain, is the heart. And I've really appreciated how much heart you've brought to this conversation this evening. And I know we didn't even get into fasting, so that'll have to be a Red Pill and Chill Volume 3 when we've dived even more in. But for now, thank you so much. And if there's any final words you want to share before we wrap up, I invite you to do that.
Yeah. The two main things I teach in my book. And if you can just spend some time on these two things, everything will change for you. The first thing is to remember who you truly are. Whether you do that through hypnotherapy or you come and learn our curate modality or however you decide to do that through meditation, remember who you truly are. You are an infinitely powerful being. Everything that Neo does in the Matrix movies, you can do. Everything that Yeshua or Buddha or Krishna does, you can do. And the more you peel away those layers, the more powerful you become and the more fun life gets. And then the second thing is to remember and get really clear on what is truly important to you. And we have had our attention diverted because most people are in survival mode. They're working in jobs they don't like just to pay for food, to pay for their basics. We are the only animal in the world who pays to live. We are the only animal in the world that has to work to create money to survive. And that is not the optimal way for us to be. Learn to thrive. Figure out what is truly important to you. Double down on your health. Stop eating the fake foods. Eat whole foods, organic if possible. Whatever whole foods means to you, just zero junk food. If you do that for 2 weeks, it switches on over 500 genetic sequences that make you have increased intelligence, increased intuition, to heal faster, activate your psychic gifts and abilities just from not eating junk food for 2 weeks. It's like we're rats in an experiment and we keep eating the poison. Fasting can help you to detox from the poison. I've been fruitarian now primarily for 5 years. I'm thriving, healthy, life's beautiful. Everything is possible for you. You can even be breatharian if you choose to, if you believe it. Question the food system, question the education system, healthcare system. Find your truth and then start living it. and we'll all have the most beautiful time. Come join us on our 2027 plan, and we will make that 2030 plan obsolete.
Amen to that. Amen to that. Brother, thank you so much. Wishing you all the best on your mission. And I'm really looking forward to plugging in ways that will be synergetic and loving. So thank you so much.